totally different situations. So what we need to understand is that if you're trying to grow versus maintain, if you're trying to lose body fat versus just keep your body weight, you're going to be doing very different things. You got to know where you're at. You got to know where you're headed. Part of the reason why we're here for you. So how should you work out, whether your goal is muscle growth or fat loss or whatever? What are some of the things that you should be doing that maybe somebody who's just trying to stay healthy, they like where they're at, they just want to maintain it. We get a lot of people like that. Your gym rats, we're always in that growth mode. We're always in that, I want to get bigger, I want to get stronger, I want to get faster. And us humans, obviously, we have a natural propensity towards growth. We all want to grow, but fitness isn't always the place where we want to see the most growth. Maybe we're using that to see other areas of our life compounded. So how should you work out? We're going to focus just on exercise mainly today if you're trying to progress in fitness, not just maintain. Well, number one, of course, is progressive. It's in the name, progressive overload. We all know this. And I say this, progressive overload. We all know this. How many of us actually do it? How many of us actually write this, our programming down, who track our workouts, who actually make sure that we're growing? I guarantee you that 90% of people out there, and I know that's a high number, but I guarantee you it's 90% of people out there who say they're trying to grow muscle, who they're trying to lose body fat, whatever, are not tracking their workouts and making sure they're progressively growing. What we think we're doing in their workouts, what we think is going on in our head, does not match up to what actually needs to be done or what we think that we're doing. We are inherently terrible at tracking our progress with our head. That is why we use all these tools. That's why we use these apps. That's why we graph things and chart things. And that's why if you hire a coach, they're going to be doing that for you. So it is super, super important to do that. I can't remember. I know there was a study one time where they had people track their calorie intake for many different goals and many different ways of doing so. It was almost comical, the people who were doing it just in their head, how close and how confident they were and how far off they were. So when we talk about progressive overload, I don't think it's incredibly complex. Even if you don't know what that is right now, I guarantee you can figure it out just by the name, which I'm going to tell you. But the key to this is not knowing it, is putting it into action, and not putting it into action in that we're going to assume that we're doing this because it feels and the vibe is there. We don't run on vibes and feelings. We run on data. So we have to track our workouts. I know sometimes that's monotonous, but man, that is super, super powerful. Even if you never go back and look at it. Here's a really good nugget. Even if you never go back and look at the workouts that you write down and when you fill in your weights, the act of writing them down does two things. One, it makes sure that you actually do set 3 and set 4 and set 5, because sometimes we write down 5 by 10 or 5 by 12 in our book, in our program, but we always do 3, but it feels like 5 when we do it. And we lose track in our head. We're very bad at focusing during our workouts. So it'll do two things. One, it'll force you to do all 5 of those sets. So you're going to actually do the workout that you wrote down. And 2, it's going to, the act of writing itself will ingrain in your memory what that weight was, what that feeling was at the end of that set, so forth, so that when you return to it next Monday, next Wednesday, whatever, or maybe a couple days later even, you're going to remember when you write it down again. When you're doing that act of writing after a set, your brain is just in that situation again, and you're going to feel that progress. And that is a real feeling of last time I remember I was writing this down. Whether you flip the page back and look or not, you're going to have a much better chance of remembering, I did this with 135, or I did this with 125, and this week I did it with 140, or maybe I did it with the same weight, but man, that felt easier. I don't feel as exhausted this time. So writing stuff down is really, really important. Tracking your workouts and your data with progressive overload is great. If you look at somebody who's in a maintenance phase, who is just trying to stay healthy, they're not trying to progress. They're probably not going to be doing that. Maybe they're in great shape and that is a habit that they have and you do see them doing that. That's great, but not everybody's going to be like that. When I don't have real serious fitness goals, I'm a career-driven person. I got a lot going on. I'm not trying to be super crazy diligent about my fitness. I don't miss my workouts because I see the value in them. I'm doing those things, but you're not going to see me walking around with a notebook or typing notes on my phone tracking every single pound that I put on the bar. So if you were to learn from me just from watching in that phase, you're going to get led wrong, right? So that's why it's important to understand our context and who you're learning from and where they're at and their situation, and make sure that it matches up to yours if you're doing that. So